Right, our next panellist is Chris Barnes, who, as we all know, is the National President of the Australia-Indonesia Business Council. He also has a part-time paid position as General Manager, Business Development for International Finance with the CBA. Before Chris took on the role as National President, he asked me what's involved in this. And I said to him, well, add at least 50% on top of whatever estimate you've made of the time that you'll need to contribute to it. And every now and then he comes back to me and says, you were right. That's why I said it's a part-time position at the CBA at the moment. Chris has a lengthy CV here, but he's asked me not to go through it. Safe to say that he's got a lot of experience internationally, working in marketing roles in London. He's obtained qualifications in economics here in Australia and law. And also importantly, in August 2009, Chris was recognised by the Indonesian government as a presidential friend of Indonesia. So that's a great achievement. So please welcome Chris.
Thanks very much, Eric, and I think every time I've called you in the last couple of years, you've started the conversation with, I told you so. Look, I think today has been a fantastic day, and I think first and foremost what I'd like to say is that it's actually been an example of partnership. And I just want to say thank you to our friends and colleagues at the AIBC, because I think that this conference genuinely shows that the AIBC and the IABC are working together probably better than we've ever worked together before. And I think it's a fantastic achievement. What I'd also like to say is that it's extremely obvious to all of the business representatives here today that we have very strong government support from both the Indonesian government as well as the Australian government. It was fantastic that we were able to have Pargita come today, and what a very impressive presentation he gave. Parmahendra, another very powerful performance, and all of us are looking forward to hearing from His Royal Highness Bapak Sultan in a few minutes. But I also want to give a very special thank you to Minister Emerson, because you may have noticed there was a bit of moving around this morning, and that's because there was an urgent cabinet meeting called in Canberra, and Minister Emerson had to leave earlier than we expected. And I just want to say to you that he really went to great lengths to be here. He pushed his diary as hard as he could, and I think that that shows you the level of commitment from the Australian government to furthering economic relations. So I think that to all of the business reps here, we have very, very solid Australian and Indonesian government support. I think the second point that I'd like to make is that we've heard the message loud and clear today about this thing called the AIBC. Probably another tricky word to get around, but it's meaningful, it's genuine, and I encourage everyone here to get involved, because this is our opportunity. We have to take advantage of it. And so Danny Burrows, leading the AIBC's IACEPA advisory group, is a guy that all of you should be making contact with. Don't be shy, get in touch, and I encourage all of you to get involved. But I want to also make the third point here is about the business involvement today, because I think that we've heard a lot about how the G2G relationship is very good. I think we've heard now how good the G2B relationship is on both sides, and we've talked a lot about how the B2B relationship is underweight. But what I'll point out to you is that the membership of the AIBC is growing. The vast number of people that are at the conference today shows that there is renewed interest in Indonesia. And I think the fact that we had such a distinguished panel led by Sally Lone today, and the ideas and the enthusiasm that we had from that panel of senior business leaders, means that we've got growing interest in that business relationship. And I think that that's it gives me great optimism for where we're about to head. I put out a challenge this morning to come up with ideas, and I think that it's interesting that we do have somewhat of a list already of ideas. So ideas that came out this morning, concrete action items that we can progress. The Australia-Indonesia Business Dialogue mentioned by Mickey. Sally mentioned that we should be having more analyst and investor visits. We have the potential of greater dialogue between Cardin and ACCI. And we have the continuing mentoring program between existing investors and potential investors that Ian alluded to. But we also had a suggestion about harnessing Indonesian students in Australia. And I'm very pleased to say that we do have those Indonesian students here today wearing those very bright red shirts led by Albertus Whitney. And I think that it shows that we are already working towards engagement with our next generation of business leaders. So thank you again to the PPIA New South Wales. You guys have done a great job. Thank you. We also had an action item about more attention for SMEs, and we had a special breakout session today on small business led by Ibu Suli. And I had an opportunity to get around to a few of the breakout sessions, but I heard that that was an excellent session and came up with some great ideas about greater engagement with the SME sector. So Ibu Suli, great job. I'm delighted to hear from Danny about some of the themes that have come out of the breakout sessions. And I did participate in some of the breakout sessions and I found there was a lot of engagement. So I think that, once again, that's been very successful. The perceptions session today, led by Parbil, I think was outstanding. It covered a lot of the issues that we needed to deal with. And I think that there is a challenge for all of us. There's a challenge for all of us, not just today, but there's a challenge for us ongoing to make sure that we do get across the correct perception, the correct reality of the new Indonesia. And I think that that's a responsibility that all of us must have. I thought also in that session there were some interesting ideas, a reverse Colombo plan. I know that the AusAid already has the Endeavour Awards program. Maybe that's something that we need to have a look at. But I also like the concept that we should be looking at the future, not the past. And I think that once again, that's very important. Jamie Mackey made a comment about business in the academic community, and I think it was a very valid one. And no one is more apt to make that comment than someone like Jamie in his experience. But I'm very pleased to say to you that the AIBC takes that challenge on front and centre. And we have actually had a very strong relationship with the Indonesia project at ANU for some time. And in fact, we've been a sponsor of the Indonesia Update for a number of years. And we had our AGM last year in Canberra at the same time as the Indonesia Update. And I can assure you, Jamie, that we will continue to do that because it's an incredibly important piece of work. Finally, I just want to thank again all of our speakers. I think it's been a powerhouse today of work. I think a lot of us are probably a little overwhelmed by all of the ideas and the suggestions and the themes and the thoughts that have come out of today. But I think all of it has been positive. But I also think a lot of it has been realistic. So thank you again to the speakers for giving up your time, but most importantly, giving us your ideas and your wisdom. I'd also like to thank again Lydia and her team. For those of you who may have noticed, Lydia is actually 8 months pregnant. So thank you for all of the work that you've done. It's been an incredible job putting this conference together. It hasn't been easy, but you've done it in a professional manner and your team should be very proud of the job that they've done. Thank you. And finally, I just want to thank Kiralee Hughes, who's the Executive Officer of the AIBC. For those of you who don't know, we actually pay Kiralee 3 days a week, but I think she works 7. I shouldn't have said that because she's also a PhD student at ANU and I'm probably going to get into trouble now from her supervisor. So let's just keep that between ourselves. But Kiralee does a fantastic job and there is no doubt that this conference would not have been held without the work that Kiralee has done. And last but not least, if I can thank my fellow panellists, Pa Primo and Greg Moriarty, the two ambassadors just do a phenomenal job. They are constantly out there supporting AIBC, IABC, supporting Australian business and Indonesian business, and I'm very proud that we've got such representatives of our respective countries. Thank you for the work that you do. And finally, thank you to everyone who's turned up today. I hope you found the conference of use. I certainly have, and I look forward to seeing you all in Bali in November.
Great, thank you, Chris. Our next but not last panellist is Greg Moriarty, the Australian Ambassador to Indonesia. He's a senior career officer within DFAT, and prior to this appointment, he was First Assistant Secretary, Consular Public Diplomacy and Parliamentary Affairs Division, it's a hell of a long title, and Assistant Secretary, Parliamentary and Media Branch from 2008 to 9. And overseas, he served as the Australian Ambassador to Iran between 2005 and 8, so he's probably watching events quite closely at the moment. Other positions in DFAT have included Assistant Secretary, Maritime Southeast Asia Branch from 2003 to 5, Director of the PNG section in 2002-3, and then importantly for us, he was Councillor and Head of the Political Section at the Australian Embassy in Jakarta from 1999 to 2002, in those early years with the new government. He's also been Director of the South Pacific Bilateral Section and a Senior Negotiator with the 4-country Peace Monitoring Group in Bougainville and Papua New Guinea Section 95 to 98 and the South Pacific Section 95. So he has a very good understanding of this region. Prior to this, he's worked with the Department of Defence, which included an overseas appointment as First Secretary Defence in the Australian High Commission in PNG. He's graduated with an honours degree from the University of Western Australia and a master's degree in Strategic and Defence Studies from the ANU. Now, last year, Greg Sheridan, in an article in The Australian, he praised Greg Moriarty, and he said, "Greg Moriarty is a brilliant choice as Australia's ambassador. He is the sort of diplomat the government turns to when it needs to get things done, especially difficult things. He's also a great athlete, as we witnessed this morning." So would you please welcome Greg Moriarty.